And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough now, O Yahweh, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. And as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him, and said unto him, Arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baken on the coals, and a cruse of water at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. And the angel of Yahweh came again the second time, and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee. And he arose, and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights unto Horeb, the mount of God. And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there. And behold, the word of Yahweh came to him, and he said unto him, What doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh, God of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And he said, Go forth and stand upon the mount before Yahweh. And behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains, and brake in pieces the rocks before Yahweh. But Yahweh was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But Yahweh was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. And it was so, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle, and went out and stood in the entering in of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him, and said, What doest thou here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh, God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away.
Same thing that I was taught over 20 years ago, the same thing that I still believe in, and the doctrine was changed, and it was changed so long ago, so many people believe in what it was changed to that they don't even understand what was originally taught. So I just wanted to kind of like throw my little 2 cents in there, if my 1 cent counts.
Say that one more time, caller. Yeah, I hear you. Say it again.
I'm sorry, I probably was breaking up. But I was saying the same doctrine that Shawapar was taught is the same doctrine that I was taught over 20 years ago. And a lot of people, they think that this is a new doctrine. This is not a new doctrine. This is what was originally taught before GMS and other camps like GMS started teaching that Cornelius was...
Thank you for shouting out GMS. I love it when you call me Big GMS. Let me stop. I love it when they gotta throw GMS in there. GMS started this, yet you damn Skippy.
The Israelite and other things that changed the doctrine. And they taught that so long ago that people think that what we're teaching is new, but this is not new at all. And I wanted to add on that when we talking about Cornelius being a Gentile and the gates being open for Gentiles, the last caller that called before me, he asked the question about Cornelius being righteous. And the answer to that is Cornelius himself was righteous, but his nation weren't righteous. So when they said in chapter 11, in regards to the Gentiles having salvation to eternal life, that was being spoken in general, not necessarily about Cornelius himself. So I just wanted to make sure I clear that up, because the brother kind of brought that out as if like the brother Shawapar was contradicting himself or something like that. But Shawapar actually gave the correct answer. It was a general statement, and even then, that salvation was given with terms and stipulations, which the nations broke, which is the reason why we still say that there is no salvation for them, because the stipulation that was given for them, they didn't follow it. They still put us into slavery. They still boasted against the branches. So technically, there is no salvation for the nation.
Right. So with that being said, they boasted against the branches. So y'all also teach that, those branches in Romans 11 are the bloodborne Gentiles.
Correct.
The Gentiles in Romans 11 are Israelites. The branches, the wild olive branch, branch, were Israelites coming back into the fold.
Because that's why it breaks it down, and it tells you the branches that were natural and the branches that were unnatural. We know the 10 tribes weren't unnatural. They were natural branches. They naturally came from the patriarch who naturally came from Jacob. So that unnatural branches, that's talking about Esau and the other nations.
That's talking about Esau and the other nations. Okay. All right.
And you have to understand, too, that even though that...
Can y'all imagine if GMS wasn't around and all these other camps was around? All you brothers and all you men in GMS and you sisters, can you imagine GMS not being around, which are the true and premier men of Yahweh by Shem Shai? Could you imagine the madness you would be a part of? You'd be worshiping Friday, sundown is the Sabbath. There's a lot. The mark of the beast you'd be teaching, because that's all y'all got. No, the mark of the beast, if Edomite said it's a chip, no, it's not. It's sin in all of its forms. Can you imagine that? You should thank Yahweh by Shem Shai for him setting up the true men of the Most High. The true men of the Most High, which is GMS. The only group that can say we had 100% truth.
The stipulation was given. There was prophecies in the Old Testament talking about how Esau branch was going to be brought low.
God. So what I'm looking at right now on the Clubhouse side, we got a few people just under 30. On the YouTube side, we kind of range in between 260 and 280. And out of all of these people watching, I've been reading these comments, and I don't put them on the screen and everything. Now, brother, you calling in support because, you have the same understanding. I'm waiting to see. I want to open up the phone lines because everybody was saying how this is just a bugged out doctrine. But I haven't heard yet how it's a bugged out doctrine. Now, let me say this now. I don't necessarily agree, but I see why you say what you're saying. My hope was that I can get the people who saying this is a bugged out doctrine to call and let's see why it's bugged out. Why is nobody coming to show the proof of the bugged out doctrine? Anybody?
And you know what? I hope somebody do call in.
And by the way, he did call us bug outs. He called us bug outs.
But the truth be told, the reason why so many people believe that is because there was doctrines like GMS years ago, back in 2003.
Keep saying GMS. I love that's music to my ears. GMS.
2004, who started teaching that Cornelius was an Israelite, and they changed the doctrine, and many other camps like GMS afterwards started teaching that same concept. So people have been teaching that concept for so long that when they hear what we're teaching, they think that this is new, or they think that it's a bugged out doctrine. But it's really not. This is the same doctrine that has always been taught. It was been taught in One West, and when I see like the posts from the brothers from Genesis and things like that, all of that's just a play on words. It's just getting people riled up and people getting all crazy about it. But in actuality, they are correct. You know what I mean? I don't know fully what they're saying in reference, but I don't want to...
Actually, they're sellouts. They're not correct. They're sellouts.
Try to validate everything that they're saying, but from a general standpoint, I'm going to say that they are correct because salvation was offered to the Gentiles. But when you read Romans chapter 11, it was offered with stipulations. And we are living 2,000 years later after that was offered to the Gentiles. And those stipulations were broken by all of the nations because they put us in the triangle slave trade. They put us in the slave trade with the Arabs. They put us in slave trade all over the planet Earth, and they boasted against the branches. That's why the Romans chapter 11 starts off saying, is Israel cast away? God forbid. Right now, the Christian church literally teach that the church has replaced the nations of Israel. And that's boasting against the branches, doing exactly what Paul told the Gentiles not to do.
Okay, I see a comment that says, respectfully, Masada just explained how it's bugged out. Go check their love. HOB oils coming out next. This nigga promoting. So, Masada, let me see how, I missed the comment. If you put it in there again. Yeah, or call in. The phone number is pinned to the top of the chat section. Hey, Carl, we appreciate you calling. Let me see if we get another caller in that's going to give us a different perspective on how this is a bugged out doctrine and why it's so bugged out.
The water will let me speak, brothers, and shalom.
Con. Yeah, it's a little delay on our end. But yeah,
Let's see what else interesting is coming up. Other than that, I'm
so I
moving
think
on.
it means our live we just did.
Please forgive me for going so long. I was waiting for some juicy stuff.
Yeah. What do you say? I think he means our live. Our live. You're also Masada DTX just did a live. Call in up and just give us a quick understanding of what you're saying. 305-209-7902. All right. Why is it bugged out? Like, what's going on? Like, if someone says Cornelius is a Gentile, why is it bugged out? I'll be somebody say Shabar say what cap at? I don't know what cap at. I don't know. But if somebody says Cornelius is a Gentile, reading the scripture, and when it literally says they're Gentiles, and if somebody
Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Barakatha Yahweh, Barakatha Yahweh Shai, Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ba Rakha HaKodash, Kol Thapa Arath, Hawad Wahaloyim, Ratwatam Yadla, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ba Rakha HaKodash. And what I just said in the Lashon Kodash, the Lashon Kodash being the ancient Paleo Hebrew, or in other words, the true biblical Hebrew for holy tongue or language. And what I just said is all glory, honor, and praises abundantly and continuously to our power, Yahweh, the true name of our Heavenly Father, who the world ignorantly and incorrectly calls God, in the name of His only begotten Son, our Savior, our Messiah, our Deliverer, Yahweh Shai, Hamashiach, who the world ignorantly and incorrectly calls Jesus Christ, in, or in other words, through the Holy Spirit. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and respect to their brothers teaching and pushing this truth out the four corners of the earth, to the hopeful elect, the 144,000 and the 1/3, as well as the rest of the elect, scattered abroad amongst the heathen nations to the four corners of the earth, east, north, south, and west. To you I say, Shalom. This is your brother Ra'ib Tazadakwa coming back at you again, all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, with another lesson. Yahweh Ratazah is going to be edifying and encouraging to you Achim and any Achawaf that may be listening and or watching. That's brothers and sisters that may be listening and or watching. First thing I'm going to say is that this isn't in transit. And Salakia, I missed my stopping point. I didn't overrun by that much, maybe a minute. I meant to stop about a minute before I did on the recording, and it's just because I'm on the road and I was paying attention to traffic and whatnot. So, but yeah, this isn't in transit. If there's any pauses, hesitations, or delays, you know why. And I do appreciate your patience in that regard, and say Thawada, which is the ancient Paleo Hebrew for thank you. I say Thawada in advance. And the second thing I'm going to say is that, second thing I'm going to do is give the fair use disclaimer. Fair use is allowed under U.S. law for educational, commentary, criticism purposes, and the like. I'm not profiting from this in any way, shape, fashion, or form. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and give credit to the originator of the material right now, which this video here, as you should have been able to tell from the video itself, is actually a upload. Wrong button. Is actually an upload from Elder Apostle Tahar.
let's say it's not a Gentile.
I don't know why it's not doing that. Oh, there you go. Okay. The Gentiles can be saved. BS, which stands for bullshit, because that's what it is spreading like a wildfire, right? And this is off of Elder Apostle Tahar's page. What is the 666 Mark II space GMS? And this is one of his pages. Another one of his pages, he's not using it right now because he got a strike on it, so he's letting it rest, which is GMS declaring the end. And he has other pages as well, but he's using this one right now because he's letting his other pages rest, which is a good idea to do when you get a strike. So yeah, and he's featuring this video here. And so I'm going to give credit to the originator of the material that's being featured. I've given, I'm sure Elder Pastor Tahar wouldn't mind, but we're going to follow YouTube's copyright rules anyway, because whether the person whose video you're sharing or featuring, whether they would mind or not, YouTube will still just do what they do, right? So I want to go ahead and give credit to Elder Apostle Tahar. And then you have here, I'm going to blow this up because I can't, Genesis mentioned HOI, which stands for House of Israel. It's one of the Israelite camps. All right, like you had the Sadducees and the scribes and the Pharisees and whatnot. Well, now you got the individual various camps today. And you got House of Israel, HOI, which is one of those camps, which is the brother you see on the right side of the screen with the head wrap on. He's in HOI, House of Israel. All right. Genesis is a splinter group from Sakari, and they split off from Sakari and formed right before, just months, I want to say, before the scandal with the disgraced former leader of Sakari, wannabe knockoff so-called chief high priest Alazar. Okay, because he considered himself to be the chief high priest, but he was engaged in some serious wickedness, some of which he acknowledges, some of which he denies, but it doesn't really matter, you know. He acknowledges some of it, and what he acknowledges is already bad enough. And how you going to be donning yourself with the mantle of being the chief high priest of all of Israel, and you engaging in wickedness like that, right? And the men that taught you are still on the earth, living and breathing, right? So, you know, but he got caught up in some serious wickedness, and you know, he very well may have done it all. We don't know, but he acknowledged some of it, and some of it he denied. So the Most High knows, and the Most High is going to deal with it. But when that happened, Sakari fractured into a bunch of different groups, and Genesis was one of them. They actually separated out right before that happened. But once that happened, another bunch of groups came out of that, and some stayed with under the banner of Sakari, but Alazar stepped down. And it's kind of even, you know, really, is he even instilling the truth? I would say no, but, you know, that's not up to me. So, but the point is, Genesis is one of the groups that came off of Sakari, and this guy here on the right side of the screen, he is HOI. And so Genesis, just so you can know who these groups are, Genesis mentioned HOI. They answered, Cornelius is not an Israelite. That's false. He is an Israelite. Okay, and we're going to be getting into that. Not tonight. We're not going to have time. But in the next part or two, maybe three, we're going to get into that. Cornelius is an Israelite. Okay, it was really tough listening to this discourse that they were having, because what you have in the nation of Israel today, what you have amongst the circumcision today, is a bunch of men that don't understand the scriptures, but yet think they understand the scriptures and consider themselves and fancy themselves to be scholars and teachers and leaders in the nation of Israel, but they don't know the scriptures. And for a lot of them, they actually think they do, but they don't. And they're bringing in a hell of a lot of confusion, and it's very painful to listen to it. It just is, because they're bringing in a hell of a lot of confusion. And the only thing you would have to do to clear, and contradictions, confusion and contradictions, and the only thing you would have to do to clear it up is just simply acknowledge the truth. Because once you acknowledge the truth, now everything kind of shifts, clicks, falls into place, and now there's no confusion. Now everything makes sense. Now it's humming like a fine machine, purring like a Persian cat. You know, everything's just sounding great now. But when you try to throw some error, some leaven up in the mix, everything gets all muddy. Everything gets all confused. Everything gets all contradictory. And you hear this guy who was calling in, the guy who had called in, on one hand, he's saying, yeah, Genesis is not right because the Gentiles can't get saved. Okay? They can't get saved. They were offered salvation, but they can't get it anymore. But Genesis is right. Well, wait a minute. How is Genesis right when Genesis is saying that the Gentiles can get saved? Damn near, when you listen to them, damn near, although they try to make it some lesser form of salvation, damn near, essentially, they're saying they can get salvation almost just like us. Okay? Because when you go down the points, you say, well, what about this? Are they going to be in the church? Are they going to be in the church? Are they going to be in slavery? I mean, that's kind of, I'm not sure how they would answer that, but when you listen to it, they're saying that the those that don't, quote unquote, repent, the natural one heathen that don't repent, they're going to be in hardcore slavery, but the other ones are not. Maybe they're going to be in some form of vassalage. In other words, they're going to be good. They're going to be under us. They do say that they're going to be under us, but they're going to be good. They're going to be good. They're not going to be, made to do any hard work or hard labor, and they're not going to be getting their heads beat over with a rod of iron pursuant to Revelation 2, 26, 27, and the 2nd Psalm and the 8th verse. They ain't going to be in chains and shackles pursuant to the 149th Psalm. So it's basically a lot of what we get is given to them, maybe just on a lower level. right? So they're saying, yeah, the natural born heathen can get salvation, but this guy who's calling in, I think he might be HOI as well. All right, if I remember correctly, he's HOI as well, so he's on the same page as the brother on the right there with the head wrap. He's saying that, yeah, Genesis is right, but they're wrong. Now wait a minute, see, that's the confusion. See, that's the muddiness. All right, we're saying they can't get salvation. Genesis is saying they can get salvation, but Genesis is technically right. That's all muddy. That's all messy. That's all confusing, and that's the confusion, and that's a contradiction. And it's just a nothing but a mess of confusion and contradictions, right? And so it's very hard to listen to. And they're like, well, and they're like, well, well, yeah, I hope somebody does call in. Go ahead and call in. In other words, we confident in our error. And so, that's why I opened up with that scripture about Elijah. And we're going to get to it in a second. But Genesis mentioned HOI. They answered, Cornelius is not an Israelite. Yes, he is. The interview, right? And so this is on Inside the Nation Radio. You can see that. So credit is given to the original source of the video being featured. And from there, I want to what was I going to do first? Because I got a lot that I want to. There's a lot you can get into with this video clip here, and I'm gonna try. I'm not intending to get into everything. Intending to get into everything. But I wanted to start off with this. Okay, Elder Apostle Tahar, in the video clip that I played, he was correcting their error on Romans the 11th chapter. And when I finish doing the lesson series for God So Loved the World, I'm going to finish that with a complete and total breakdown of Romans the 11th chapter. Okay, but of course, Elder Apostle Tahar is correct. The wild olive tree, all right, the wild branches are Israelites. So what the caller was saying is incorrect and it's wrong, and that's why it's very hard to listen to error, because when you got a true prophet, which I do believe, hope, trust, and believe that I am, when you got a true prophet and he's hearing error, you got to jump on it. And I'm doing it now, but I had to wait until the opening was done. But it was hard to listen to that because it's so erroneous and it's just so obviously wrong. But like I said, you got a lot of men in Israel who consider themselves to be teachers, but they do not know the basics of the scriptures. But because they're in an echo chamber, and because they've been saying the same, they've been bouncing and echoing the same errors off of one another for so long, for years, and the synapses of their mind are worn and grooved. Their consciences are seared with a hot iron. They think it's right. They think it's right. Okay, but the reason why I opened up with, let me get on this first. And I'm a bit fired up about this, man, because this is very, very major what's going on in the nation of Israel right now. But the reason why I opened up with this 1 Kings 19, I got the whole first 14 verses, but that's what I do because I like line up and line. But the point is in 11 and 12. I could have just read that, but I don't like to do that. I like to get the context, right? And he said that he is the angel, right? And he said, "Go forth and stand upon the mount before Yahweh, and behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountain." That'll grab your attention. That will grab your attention. Surely the Most High must be in that. Okay? Surely. Let's switch to another event that took place. Okay? Samuel the prophet standing before Jesse, and Jesse is bringing out his sons. I think it was 7 of them. I think it was 7 of them besides David, but don't quote me on that. It might have been 8, but I think it was 7 or 8 besides David. David wasn't even included. He was the youngest. They didn't even bother. Jesse did not even bother to bring David out. Samuel had to ask him, wait a minute, wait. Something's wrong here. Do you have any other sons? Because you stop there like that's your last son. Surely you got another son, don't you? And of course he did, right? Because the Most High didn't speak on it. But the point I'm making is, when he brought out those sons, those first 7 sons, especially starting out with the first one and the second and all, they were strong, handsome, mighty looking men. And Samuel was like, surely this is the one. And the Most High was like, nah, that ain't him. And then so on and so forth, all down the line. And that's kind of the same thing here with this great and strong wind. Surely the Most High is in the wind. Okay? And oh, look at that. It rent the mountains and break in pieces the rocks before Yahweh. Wow! The Most High Yahweh has to be in the wind, right? But Yahweh was not in the wind. He's not in that. And after that, an earthquake, a great earthquake, man. You don't even know what to do, man. Let the ground start shaking under your feet, and you what the hell are you gonna do? What you gonna do? It don't matter, because everywhere you would run for safety is on the ground. Every thing you would get under cover for or get into for safety is on the ground. What are you gonna do? An earthquake is serious, man. Okay? An earthquake is serious, and everybody's gonna know it. Everybody's gonna drop what they're doing when an earthquake hits, and they're gonna be looking at each other, right? But Yahweh was not in the earthquake. Okay? And give me a second, just, got some traffic, construction there. All right, I'm through it. And then look at this. And after the earthquake, a fire. Woo! Man, a fire. You think this was a little trash can fire? Hell no, man. This was a raging fire. Okay? We don't know, but we weren't there. But come on, man. It was no matchbox fire. This was a raging fire. All right? This was a raging fire. Okay? And look, man, let you wake up, let you wake up from your slumber and look out in the hallway and see flames burning in the house. All right? And see what type of an adrenal response you get. Okay? So that, again, these things right here are eye-catching, eye-popping, attention-grabbing events. But Yahweh was not in the fire. So what I'm saying is, these camps that get on these platforms with tens of thousands of subscribers, in some cases hundreds of thousands of subscribers, some of the platforms they get onto, okay? And they get their tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of views. I think even in some cases over 1 million plus views. These are the camps that get invited on to these platforms, and they have relatively large platforms themselves. Sometimes 10, 20, like Genesis. Between the two of them, they got 60,000 subscribers. Okay, and that's just between the two of them. They averaging 30K subscribers each. Average. Getting thousands of views, in some cases tens of thousands of views per video. And and that's normal. So some of them is running up higher than that. Shorts and everything, right? That would be likened unto the great and strong wind, the earthquake, and the fire. But Yahweh is not in that. Yahweh was in the still small voice. And the still small voice is likened unto the true men of the Lord, the true prophets, which predominantly is the men of Great Millstone. All right, but there are true prophets that are not under that banner directly. Myself included, myself would be included in that number. I'm not in Great Millstone, but I teach the same doctrine as Great Millstone. Okay? So the men that teach the likewise doctrine, whether they're under the Great Millstone banner directly or not, you'll hear the elders and apostles say, and our true affiliates. Right, those men that are not actually in Great Millstone, but teach the same doctrine. Right? That's the still small voice. We don't get invited on those platforms. Okay? All right? You see? And so you got to understand this. This is Yahweh's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. This is the way that the Most High has set it up. Okay? The error is all out on blast to distract and snow out the truth and keep those who are unworthy from getting to it. You got to understand that. Okay? And that's why I open with that. And you also got to understand this before I get into some of the things they were talking about. Revelation 14, you got to understand, this is the 144,000. And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the Mount Zion, the nation of Israel, and with him the lamb is Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, the only begotten Son, our Savior, our Messiah, our deliverer. And with him 144,000, the 144,000, 12,000 sealed, right? A spiritual seal. This is not a lizical. Okay, that's putting literal and physical together. This is not a literal or physical seal. This is a spiritual seal. You cannot see it with your flesh and blood eyes, but the angels see it. Because just this is a seal very much akin to the seal of Ezekiel, the 9th chapter, that was placed on those that were sighing and crying for all of the abominations. In other words, they were grieved and vexed in their spirits, like Lot was, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. This is the same type of seal as that. Mark, thawa, okay? The mark of exemption. Salaki, I was about to say the wrong Greek word. The mark of exemption, which in the Hebrew is thawa, okay? Which means a mark of exemption from judgment, which is a spiritual mark. And so that was put on them in Ezekiel 9 by an angel. So it was a spiritual mark on the spirit. You could not see it on the body, on the physical flesh and blood body, okay? And that's what this is talking about here as well. We're sealed with the names of the Father and the Son on our spirits, our heart, our mind, okay? Our spirit, to be exact, okay? And with them 144,000, you can go to Revelation 7, start at verse 1 to read about how it's 12,000 from each tribe. And these are the prophets. These are the prophets, okay? With them 144,000 having the Father's name written in their foreheads. When you get this in the Hebrew, because the book of Revelation was originally written in the Hebrew, okay? John on the Isle of Patmos, he wrote it in Hebrew, and it was later translated to Greek, okay? And John on the Isle of Patmos, there's no, I don't believe that John even knew how to write Greek, all right, or speak Greek, okay? But he wrote it in Hebrew, and when you get the Hebrew manuscripts, it has the Father's and the Son's name, okay? For whatever reason, the KJV left it out, but when you get it in the Hebrew, which is the original language, the original script, it says Father and Sons, and that's why the NLT, this is one of the few places, most of the time when you compare the NLT to the KJV stomps the NLT. I'm talking about where they differ, okay? Because the NLT, is decent in a lot of spots, but it's inferior to the KJV, all right? And if it deviates from the KJV, all right, and it says something that's different than the KJV, most of the time, it loses that battle, okay? In other words, the KJV is right and the NLT is wrong. Here is one of the few places where the NLT is actually superior to the KJV in this instance, because typically it's not. But let's read the NLT and you'll see. Then I saw the Lamb, Yahushai, standing on Mount Zion, the nation of Israel, and with him were 144,000 who had his name, the name of the Lamb as well. Not just the Father's name, the name of the Lamb as well, which is Yahushai, okay? The name given unto heaven whereby men must be saved. And there, according to that same precept, Acts 4 and 12, there is none. What does none mean? I get sick of emphasizing this because it's like I'm tired of emphasizing something so obvious. But obviously, equally obviously, it has to be emphasized. What does none mean? Does none mean some? Does none mean one other? Does none mean whatever you want? There is none other name given unto heaven whereby men must be saved. So you got to call on the name of Yahushai. So we're sealed with his name as well, because we got to call on him to get back to the Father. He's the way, the truth, and the life. He's the door. No man cometh unto the Father but by him. So we call on the Father in the name of the only begotten Son. We call on Yahweh in the name of, in the Hebrew, that would be Bahashem, Ba in Ha the Sham name. So we call on the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, in the name of Yahushai, because the Father isn't going to acknowledge us unless we go through the Son. We're going through the Son to get back to the Father. The Father said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Hear ye him, listen to him, follow him." So we got to go through the Son to get back to the Father. He told you he's the way, the truth, the life. He's the door. No man cometh to the Father but by him. So we got to be sealed with both of those names. And that's exactly what John wrote in the Hebrew on the Isle of Patmos. Okay, sealed with the names of the Father and the Son, who had his name and his Father's name, and 1 and 2, written on their foreheads, spirits. Okay, not literally. You got to understand these things, right? But we get down here, and you can read all this. This is all good. Sake of time. This is what we're coming for. Those 144,000, the actual true prophets, and in their mouth was found no guile. No guile. None. Are you trying to say that the true prophets can't say something wrong every now and then? No. That can happen. But if it does happen, Yahweh forbid it happens, but it can, and it does occasionally. It does occasionally. But when it does, we're going to acknowledge it and we're going to correct it. We're going to acknowledge it and we're going to correct it. Okay? We are in the flesh. Sometimes a brother can misspeak. Sometimes a brother can just get things twisted up for a second, and then I was listening to my video. I heard what I said. When I said that, that was incorrect. I misspoke. Salaki. It's actually this. Boom, 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 and then you're done. Okay. So this is not saying that a true prophet can't make a mistake here and there in innocence, so to speak. All right. Okay. Or even just have some leaven in his doctrine that needs to get purged out. But the thing is, that's going to be rare. It's not going to be like an all the time thing. And if it does happen, if and when it does happen, when it's brought to their attention, they're going to purge it out because in their mouth is no guile. See? Which is not the case with the false prophets. Okay? We go to this word for guile. And you see it there. Okay? We don't need to play it. Looks like it's a simple pronunciation, dolos. Okay? But you see here, craft, deceit, craft. All right? And that really goes into the Romans 16 and 17. So we're going to have to go there next. Because that craft, it really goes into the good words and fair speeches deceiving the hearts of the simple, right? Which that deceiving goes into the next word, deceit, guile. And you say, well, Ra'ib, is it guile? Is it craft? Is it deceit? If let's just say somebody is a false prophet, is it craft and is it deceit if they're not trying to deceive it? Is it deceit if they actually think what they're saying is true? Yes. Yes. Whether they do it intentionally or not, whether they do it knowingly or not, it's guile. Okay? So let's look at this root word. To bait. Ooh, see this is why we got to go to Romans 16 and 17. To bait, catch by bait. That's it. What you heard them saying on that clip that I played, that was bait getting dangled in front of the fish, right? The fish should bite on the good bait, right? They should bite because the true prophets are what? Fishers of men. And the fishers of men, the true prophets, that we got our bait in the water. We're trolling. We're fishing, right? But guess what? So are the false. And they're dangling their bait. And a lot of the times the bait of the false prophets looks a lot juicier than the bait of the true prophets. You see? And so because their bait looks a lot juicier, they're the strong wind rending the mountain and the rocks and crushing the rocks. They're the earthquake, they're the fire. And then the true prophets, we just got our, we just got our little bit of bait on the hook. But it's the good stuff. But it's just a little bit. It don't really look like much because we're that still small voice. See? Metaphorically, to beguile by blandishment or allure, entice, deceive. But see, none of that is in the mouth of the true prophets. And that's why we're not getting invited on these platforms with tens of thousands of subscribers and hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Okay? They don't call the truth. Okay? I have yet to see a hopeful elect man of the Lord that is on any of those big platforms that has pure doctrine. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that none of them that's been on there are true men of the Lord, but if they are, they got to purge out right now their doctrine has leaven in it. And they got to, and so the doctrine that even if they are a true man of the Lord, and they're ultimately going to purge out the leaven, right? When they get on these big, major, huge platforms with tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of subscribers and hundreds of thousands, maybe even 1 million plus views, the gospel that they preached, that's not the gospel of the kingdom because it has error in it. And if whoever listens to that and believes that, that's not going to get it. That's not going to get it done for them. They would have to ultimately get the leaven purged out of the doctrine that they believe. Okay? And that's why they're on there, because that ain't it. That ain't it. No liars of the truth. Okay? They're not having pure doctrine get pushed on these major platforms. The pure doctrine is a still small voice. Okay? And if you notice, the next thing it says in the next verse is, and Elijah heard it. Look, most aren't going to hear it because they so focused on the earthquake. They're so focused on the fire. They're so focused on the great, strong, and mighty wind. They didn't hear the still small voice. They just ran with the strong wind. They ran with the earthquake. They ran with the fire. See? And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of the Most High. The others, they got something to answer for. Okay? The Most High has fault with them. The Most High looks at them and he finds fault. The true prophets, who can lay anything to the charge of the Most High's elect? Let's go to Romans 16 and 17 before I get into commenting on some of these things. I don't know if I'm going to get through it all tonight, because you know the time flies when you're having fun. So Romans 16, we're already 40 minutes in. It's like, man, it feels like 20. All right, so Romans 16, that craft, that alluring, that enticement, right? That's what's going on here. And they're shaking the bait and it looks so juicy. And that's why the brother who was hosting it, which I believe was the brother in the middle, he's like, you know what? I don't agree, but I see where you're coming from. I see why you're saying what you're saying. Let me translate that for you. I'm swimming through this water right here and that bait looks juicy. I just might bite on it and get reeled into the false doctrine. Now, I don't think that brother has 100% pure doctrine anyway, but, you know, because I don't know his whole doctrine, but it's unlikely that he has pure doctrine. But at least he's got that part right, that Cornelius is an Israelite. And he's about to go further away from the truth, the pure doctrine, by getting convinced that Cornelius is a natural-born Gentile, right? And that's why he's like, well, I see where you're coming from. That bait looks juicy. I just might bite it. Hey, dangle it just a little bit more. Shake it to the left. Shake it to the right. Shake it just like that. I just might bite on it. That's what he's saying. Because we're fishers of men. The false are true. The false are two, okay, as well as the true, okay? And it's looking good to him. That's what he's saying. I see why you're saying it, okay? I don't. I mean, I see how it's error. I see how it's erroneous. I see it too, and I see the error with it. Right? So Romans 16 and 17, I'm not going to break this down as much as I did in the live stream from the live altar teaching from yesterday. Now I beseech you, specifically 18 is what we're going to. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark, meaning point them out, identify them, warn everybody about them, avoid them. It's going to tell you that specifically. Mark, identify them, which cause divisions and offenses. Well, that's just because you don't like it. I mean, that's just on you. I don't mean contrary to the doctrine. No, it's not about me. It's not about whether I like it or don't like it. It's not about whether that's my style or not my style. It's not about whether that's my jig and my thing or not. My thing is, nobody, your thing, keep your thing to yourself, man. All right? It isn't about that. It's about that it's contrary to the doctrine. That's the issue. They're bringing in something contrary to the doctrine, okay, which ye have learned. This is not what we have learned. It isn't even what they learned. See, that other dude was saying, well, this is what we learned, and this is what our elders learned. We've been teaching it. This was the way it was for 20 years. And no, they don't have the whole truth. They don't have the whole truth. Because I hear them saying that, and I hear Genesis saying that too, that, hey, look, our elders back at the old school at One West, they taught that salvation, that the natural-born Gentiles can get salvation. No, they didn't. That's a lie. But when they tell that lie and there's nobody there to correct it, no, I'm not saying they're telling that lie on purpose. I'm not saying that because I don't know that, but they could be. But it doesn't matter whether they tell it on purpose or not. Maybe they are. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But I'm telling you this, it's a lie. And when they say that lie, Genesis and the others, you heard HOI saying something very similar to it, okay? But I think they were stopping a little bit short, okay? But what they were saying, I'm going to give you what was true in a second. And if they meant that, then that's cool, because that is true. But when you say that in conjunction with Genesis' lie, it kind of builds right into it. And it becomes pretty much the same thing by extension. So you got to be really careful with that, right? But what they were saying is, in the old school, our elders, the original elders that learned from Elder Bivens, okay? The original 7 elders that learned from Elder Bivens, they taught that natural-born Gentiles can get deliverance and salvation. That's what Genesis is saying. Wrong. Not true. How you know that, right? Because the men that were there said it. The men that were there. The men that learned from those elders said it. Elder Apostle Tahar, Elder Apostle Gabar, Elder Apostle Hakah, Elder Apostle Aram Lab, gave the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone. They was like, that's bullshit. We were there. We know. Okay? No. They never taught that the natural born Gentiles can get salvation. So Genesis is wrong again. Okay? Wrong. Deadly wrong. Okay? Leading everybody astray, causing confusion, causing strife, causing mayhem and chaos. Okay? Rain going sideways, cats and dogs living together. All right? You know what I'm saying? Throw a little humor in there, but still. All right? What they thought originally, because the truth, when it was first given to us, it was not in a purified, refined form yet. It took some time to get purified. Okay? So they thought that originally, they thought that Cornelius was a Gentile, natural born. Yes, they did think that. Okay? But nobody was trying to say he was going to get saved, though. They just thought he was a natural born Gentile at first. Right? And then over the years, and I say over the years, I'm talking about the early years. Okay, so the school's still together and all that. All right, no splits, no real significant splits had happened yet. Okay, I can't remember which one of the elders was. I think it was, I can't remember which one. I can't remember, so I'm not going to say his name. I got one in mind though. But it just kind of came to him a little bit. He's like, well, hey, you know what? Because nobody thought that the natural born Gentiles were getting salvation. They just thought that Cornelius was a natural born Gentile, but nobody thought he was getting salvation. So then one day they was like, well, you know what? I just kind of think maybe Cornelius is an Israelite. And they kind of kicked it around amongst themselves. And then one of them was like, well, I know, let's call Elder Apostle Tahar and ask him what he thinks about that. And they called Elder Apostle Tahar, and he was in the middle of teaching a class, so he didn't really bother to pay attention because Elder Apostle Tahar was about that business. So when they called him in the middle of him teaching the class, he was like, look, I'm teaching the class, and he hung up the phone. Right? Which I can understand, right? But because he just hung the phone up, even though he hung the phone up because he was in the middle of teaching a class and he's about teaching his students, this isn't the time for y'all to be bothering me right now. I'm teaching, right? And he hung up for that reason, and that reason alone. They kind of took it that he hung up because he thought that what they were saying was whack, and so they just dropped it. That's what happened. I've heard Elder Apostle Tahar tell this story multiple times. So they just dropped it. They was like, okay, well, if Elder Apostle Tahar can't see it, well, then forget it then, you know? But they couldn't forget it. Why? Because the Spirit was bringing it up, leading us and teaching us in all truth and knowledge. So the Spirit was at work purifying the doctrine. So it kind of got swept under the rug for a second, you know, some period of time, but that's a mighty big lump under the rug. Let's lift that up and see what's under there. Oh, it's the question about whether or not Cornelius is an Israelite. And so it came back up. Elder Apostle Gabar was like, you know what? I think Cornelius is an Israelite. And he just was thinking out loud. And then, you know, next thing you know, they having a council, and boom, they get kicked out. I'm simplifying it because nobody else was really seeing it because they didn't want to see it. And that's where they think it ended. That's where they think it ended. It didn't end there because there were some splits, you know, and then after the splits, what they don't realize is that the very same elders ultimately came to the realization, oh, hand to the forehead, smack, Cornelius is an Israelite. So the very same elders that they look at and go, well, our elders thought that Cornelius was a natural born Gentile, so we going with that, which is inappropriate. That is against scriptures. That is against the scriptures. That is not being a Berean. That is not being in the spirit of a Berean. But let's set that to the side because that's not my main point right now. My main point is this, that those same elders, after some splits and after a little bit of time, they also came to the realization that Cornelius is indeed an Israelite. So they're going, oh, well, we're going to go with our elders. They taught that Cornelius was a Gentile, so we're going to go with that because that's what our elders taught, and we're rocking with that. Well, those same elders, no, they came to the understanding, actually, Cornelius is an Israelite. So come on, man. So they're just wrong. And the basis of their wrong decision and their wrong doctrine and their wrong understanding is faulted and flawed because they didn't stick with that. They changed it. They ultimately came to the agreement and the understanding and the conclusion that actually we were wrong. Actually, Cornelius is an Israelite. Okay? And not apostle, elder, what's his name? Elder, not elder, he doesn't go by elder. Bishop, he is an elder, but Bishop Nathaniel, who was on the council that kicked out Elder Apostle Tahar, Elder Apostle Gabar, and they just, Elder Apostle Hakah wasn't even there, but they just kicked him out too anyway, because they knew that he rocked with Tahar and Gabar. So they just kicked him out too, and he wasn't even there. And Elder Apostle Ramlat, the council where they had over this matter, whether Cornelius was an Israelite or a natural born Gentile, where they kicked him out because they said, nope, he's a natural born Gentile, you all are wrong, and we're kicking you out. And they did. They kicked him out. Okay, and Bishop Nathaniel was on that council, and Bishop Nathaniel was on the council and part of the group that decided to kick them out. He also now teaches that Cornelius is an Israelite. So they all came to that understanding. Yet and still, you have House of Israel claiming that the reason why they're going to stand on Cornelius being a natural born Israelite is because that's what the elders taught. And completely and totally being ignorant or just flat out ignoring, one or the other, that they ultimately changed and corrected that to he is an Israelite. And Genesis, whether knowingly or unknowingly, is saying that our elders taught that the natural born Gentiles can get salvation when they never taught that at all. Even when they thought that Cornelius was a natural born Gentile, they never taught that he can get salvation. See all this confusion, all this mayhem and chaos, and contradictions all over the place. See, this is what's going on. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. Hey, look, far as I know, if not all of them, the majority of them that were on that council that kicked out the elders and apostles of Great Millstone for teaching that, for teaching that, they actually hadn't taught it yet. They were just bringing it up, and because the Spirit made it come up. And they all those that were on that council against them and kicked them out, the majority of them, if not all of them, came to the understanding that actually we were wrong. Actually, and you also don't know that I think it was the very next day they came back to Elder Apostle Tahar, and it's like the next day or within the next week they came back and was like, hey, look, well, actually we're not going to kick you out. Let's talk about it some more, right? And at that point, because the Spirit made this happen, and at that point Elder Apostle Tahar was like, well, look, I don't want to be bothered with it anymore. Don't call us, we'll call you, right? Because the Spirit was bringing this split, okay? And that's why it happened that way. But they ultimately came to the understanding that actually he is an Israelite. We were wrong. We shouldn't have kicked them out. They're right. We're wrong. He is an Israelite. Okay? And nobody acknowledges that. Okay? Well, the men that were there, the men that were involved, that's what they're telling you. Right? But nobody's listening to that. Again, the still small voice. You got to make sure you got your ears keenly attuned to the still small voice. Okay? All right. And so that's the truth concerning that and what he was saying about our elders, and we've been taught this for 20 years and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Right? Okay? They don't know what they're talking about, man. Right? So that's the history there. And that's coming from men that were there. And you can go listen to Elder Apostle Tahar's videos on this topic. And he's done a lot of them. And I think in these recent videos, since Genesis has come up with this damnable heresy, he's gone over that account like twice. All right. So, he does a lot of videos and they got some time on him. But if you listen to him, put it on ×2 speed or something, and you'll hear him say it. And then go listen to Elder Apostle Gabar and a Ramlab, and they'll corroborate it. They'll be like, yeah, that's what happened. And they'll add some more to it. But, because just like with the Gospels, those that were there and Mark as well, who was going off of I forget, I want to say he was Peter. He was going off of Peter's account or something like that. I can't remember for sure. But they would all give the same thing and everything lined up, but they would add additional details that stood out to them. So certain things stood out more to each of the individual men. So the core of what they were saying lined up exactly, but then they would give additional details pursuant to what stood out to them. So something may have stood out more to Matthew that didn't stand out so much to Luke. So Matthew would include it, but Luke wouldn't. But something else stood out to Luke, but it didn't stand out to Matthew or John. So Luke would include it, but Matthew and John wouldn't. See, so it's the same thing with that. Okay. So now that I didn't get to what I want to get to. For they that are such serve not our Lord Yahweh Mashiach, but their own belly, their carnal, lustful desires, their lustful flesh. That's what it's talking about. All right, their carnal, lustful desires, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, all right, and the lust of the flesh. Okay, and by good words, and we got this in the Hebrew, not the Hebrew, the Greek. Okay, all right. We got this in the Greek. I'm going down the road. I'm not going to get it right now. We got this in the Greek before, and on the live altar teaching. And the good words goes into words that are plausible, words that have the appearance of being possibly true. Okay, it's not good as in good and false, good and bad. You know, like you got good words and you got bad words. No, it's good in that it's plausible. You know, that could be true. Okay? But is it true? Well, wait till we get to the end of the verse. You already know it's not. It's really talking about plausible words. When you listen to it, it sounds like something that could be true. Like when you listen to that caller. And like I said, I'm pretty sure he was from HOI as well. Okay? It sounded like it's plausible. I'm going to go with Star-Lord off of Avengers Infinity Wars. When he heard Iron Man's, they was on that planet. They was on Thanos' home planet, and Iron Man gave his plan of about how they're gonna deal with Thanos when he shows up. And Star-Lord was like, "That's a great plan. Only problem is it sucks." Right? You know, when you listen to his plausible words, it's like, you know, that sounds like it might be true. Only problem is it's false. Okay? Yeah, it's false. Those are the good words, plausible but false. That brings in the alluring, the craft, right? Which goes into but their own belly, and by good words, plausible, that could be true. Sounds like it might be true. And fair speech. The fair speeches goes into the craft. That goes into words that are cleverly crafted and presented to you in a manner that is artfully crafted to allure you, entice you, and draw you in. And that's what's on full display, firing on all cylinders from all these wayward doctrines amongst the circumcision that have had new life breathed into them by the damnable heresy bomb dropped by Genesis. And they don't agree. But they all, even though they don't agree, no, they can get salvation. No, they can't get salvation. But they say they can. No, they can't. But we agree because they're right, but they're wrong because they can't. Right? but even though they don't agree, this is the confusion and the chaos. Even though they don't agree, they're getting a whole new fresh wind of air in their sails. Okay? That's the good words and the fair speech. And what's the end result of it? Okay? If you buy into these good words, if you bite on these fair speeches, okay? If you bite on that bait because they shake it to the left and shake it to the right and jiggle it with a little wiggle, okay? Then what's the end result? What's the end result? And fair speeches, by good words and fair speeches deceive the hearts of the simple, and the simple goes into those that don't know any better. You're gullible. You're a guppy fish. You're a guppy fish. You're those fishes, those little guppies. You know, that's what you are. You're a guppy. You're a gullible guppy fish, and you just swallow down that bad bait, hook, line, and sinker, and you get reeled in. Hearts deceived. Okay, so now I thought I'd be into it by now. Let me at least, you know, that's what I'm saying. It's a lot to get into with this. It's just a lot to get into with this. Let me at least, I'm going to pull over. Give me a second. I'm going to pull over and let me at least begin to unwrap some of the false errors that he was saying. Let me pull over though. All right. I'm pulled over and I'm going to start to unpack. What was I? Let me see here. I was going to point out. I feel like I was going to point out 3 things. I know I'm not going to get to the third, if there is a third, but I think there is. I'm gonna have to get to that next time, so that's okay. I don't have to remember that right now. Let me try to point out two things, if I can, quickly. I'll get at least one. All right, and the one I want to get first is the main one that I wanted to point out, because in this video here, in this clip, okay, they're talking rather confidently, and I don't know why it's all super blotchy. Okay, I got it set on 720, which is plenty for the, anyway, whatever. But I don't need to play it. I'm not gonna play it again. You heard it, and you can back it up and listen to it again, or whatever. But in there, they was like confidently raging, man. It was like, yeah, tell us how this doctrine is bugged out, okay? And they have a look of pompous confidence and pride on their faces, because like I said, the brother on the right with the head wrap, he's HOI, House of Israel, and I believe the brother that called in as well, and that's why the moderator or the host said, this guy agrees with you, so I want to hear somebody else call in, right? And I believe that ultimately they said that he was HOI as well, but don't quote me on that. Even if he wasn't, he was saying pretty much the same thing as the guy on the right, the brother on the right. But when the caller was speaking, he said there's two things I want to touch on, but I don't know if I'm going to get to them both tonight. One of the things he said that was grossly erroneous, right? And it goes into plausible, the good words and the fair speeches, artfully crafted to draw you in, was that when it says that the Edomites or the nation of Esau, Edom, is evil or wicked, that doesn't necessarily mean Cornelius. Or in other words, it doesn't necessarily mean each and every individual Edomite. In other words, there's a few of them that's not wicked. There's a few of them that's not evil, right? And that is flat out categorically wrong. And I'm going to bring out a few quick precepts to show that. But I want to start with the other one. Okay, I think I can get to that one pretty quick. So let me start with the other one first, though. The other one was that he was making his case, which differs from the doctrine of Genesis, yet he's saying Genesis is right. Again, confusion. If you're saying something different, then how can you say you agree, or the other people? If you're saying Genesis is right, then that means you're wrong. But you're not saying you're wrong. You're saying you're right. Okay? That right there shows you that it's bugged out. That right there, and I don't even use that terminology. That right there shows you that it's whack. It's wrong. It's erroneous. It's false. But I wasn't even going to focus on that one. But add that one to the list, you got a bonus. A bonus, easy way to see that what they're saying is false. Because their doctrine contradicts the doctrine of Genesis, yet they say Genesis is right. Okay? So that's one easy way to see that their doctrine is false. Okay? This is all confusion. But I wasn't going to point that one out. The way I was going to point out is based off of his logic. Okay? Because he goes on to say that the natural born Gentiles cannot get salvation, which is true. That isolated statement is true. But he says the reason why they can't get salvation is not because it's not available for them. It is available for them, or was available for them, which is false. That's not true. Okay. He said it was available to them because it was offered to them. And he goes into Romans 11, and that's because he doesn't understand that those wild olive tree branches are Israelites, okay, who were acting like the heathen nations, being called heathen and Gentiles and Greeks and foreigners and Israelites, not Israelites, and foreigners and strangers, okay? So he doesn't understand that because he doesn't have understanding, and he shouldn't be teaching the scriptures. He shouldn't be presenting himself as any kind of authority on the scriptures because he doesn't know the scriptures, okay? And so he going back to his logic and his thinking, according to his false understanding, is that salvation was offered to the natural born Gentiles, but they messed up the opportunity. How did they mess up the opportunity? Well, he goes on to say that they messed up the opportunity for salvation by putting us into slavery. And he mentions the transatlantic slave trade and the I want to say I believe it's called the sub-Saharan slave trade as well. That's the Arab slave trade. Okay, and he mentions those two slave trades, and he says that when they did that, when they put us into slavery, that messed up their opportunity for salvation. So even though salvation was offered to them, they messed it up, and now they can't get salvation because they put us into slavery. Only problem is that makes no sense. Only problem is that's stupid. Okay? And here's how it's stupid. If the very way that they messed up the opportunity for salvation is by putting us in slavery, and when they put us in slavery, they messed up their opportunity for salvation because, okay, we're going to give you salvation now. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. You put the Israelites in slavery. Now you can't get salvation. Does it make any sense that the very thing they did to fuck up their opportunity for salvation, all right, is what they were already doing many times before they ever got the supposed opportunity? So if they're going to lose their opportunity for salvation by putting us into slavery, then how in the world could they ever be given the opportunity for salvation in the first place when they've already enslaved us many times? That is a wah, 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 wah. That's what that is. Okay? Because, come on, man. And you mean to tell me, and he goes on to talk about boasting against the natural branches, right? Which again, the grafted in branches is the Israelites that are coming back. Okay, that's why they're also an olive tree. Okay, notice that it's wild olive tree and good olive tree, both olive tree, because they're both Israelites. Okay, the wild is the ones that's acting like the heathen. They're acting like wild. They're acting wild and crazy like the heathen. The good are the ones that stuck to the laws, commandments, and statutes and continue to hold fast to our customs and act like Israelites are supposed to act, more or less, right? That's your good and your bad. Your natural and your wild, okay? But both olive branches, okay? It's not olive and fig. It's not olive and, I don't know, whatever, whatever you want to use other than olive. No, it's olive and olive. And that's because both the good and the wild are Israelites, okay? So they had us in slavery many times before, and they boasted against it. They boasted, they bragged, okay? They boasted against us on it, okay? We went into a whole, we went into slavery under the Assyrian kingdom, okay? Northern kingdom did. Went into slavery under the Neo-Babylonian empire, okay? Southern kingdom, okay? Went from that slavery into slavery. Don't forget the Egyptians, okay? We were in captivity in ancient Egypt. Okay, and then we had a bunch of run-ins with some of the other, nations as well. But let's get to, don't bother about the mid-level and the smaller captivities. Don't worry about them. Let's just talk about the big stuff. We had ancient Egypt. We had the Assyrian kingdom taking down the northern kingdom, okay, putting them into slavery. We had the Babylonians taking down the southern kingdom, putting us into slavery. We rolled from that straight into the Medo-Persian captivity, okay, whole nother kingdom, whole nother empire, slavery. Then we went from that into under the Greek Empire, slavery. Okay? And then wait a minute. When the Apostle Paul was writing the book of Romans, at the very point when he's writing that, we're in slavery to the Romans. So we've been in slavery by the heathen nations all over the place. And while we're in slavery under the Romans, salvation is being offered to the natural and heathen? Scratch, scratch, scratch. Huh? I'm trying to figure that out. Fast forward, they put us in slavery some more. Oh, you fucked up now. Now you can't get it. You shouldn't have put them in slavery. Well, wait a minute. We just put them in slavery all this time before. We got offered salvation. Even though we put them in slavery, we put the Israelites in slavery a bunch of times over thousands of years. We got offered salvation anyway, but then we lost it for doing the same thing we did before it was offered. See, that's an easy way to see that this doctrine is quote unquote bugged out, as they put it. I hope you follow that because it's easy to see. It is completely and totally illogical. Okay? All right, it sounds plausible. Only thing is, it's dumb as hell. That's the only problem. I mean, other than that, it's great. Okay? Now let's go deal with what he was saying. The caller was saying about, Cornelius supposedly being an Edomite, which he wasn't. He was an Israelite, and he didn't look like it. He wasn't even an Israelite that looked like an Edomite. He was an Israelite that looked like these brothers right here. Okay? You go and you look in Esau's military today, and you will see Israelites looking like these brothers. You will see Israelites looking like the Northern Kingdom, so-called Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Americans, Seminole Indians. You will see Israelites looking like Moabites, modern-day Chinese, modern-day Japanese. You will see heathen looking like Moab, looking like Ammon. You will see heathen looking like Ishmael. You will see heathen looking like Hamites. You'll see heathen looking like all the nations in the American military. I know, because I was in it. Right? And we even had a Filipino national up in Esau's military. Okay? There were Israelite men looking like Israelite men, just like these brothers on the screen, in the Roman military. Okay? Cornelius was an Israelite, and he looked very much like those brothers there. All right? So, but they think he was a natural-born Gentile. And they assume he was an Edomite, so-called white man. So, they trying to say that Cornelius, and that's what makes this so dangerous. Because, see, if this was coming, these are pagan Christian doctrines, but they're being presented from within as a Trojan horse. So they're not being presented, even though they're pagan doctrine Christians, they're not being presented like the pagan Christians present them. Because if they're presented like the pagan Christians present them, they'll be categorically rejected. However, if they're being presented and brought within the camp of the circumcision of Israel by our own, well, then they're going to be massaged and crafted, okay, fabricated in a way that is much more alluring and enticing. So they don't go as far as the pagan Christians do. They give concessions that leave room for more of the truth. The deception and the deceit and the craft, it includes a greater content of truth, which makes it much more deceptive and alluring and enticing and deceitful. Dangerous. Okay? So, he's saying Cornelius was an Edomite. He wasn't. But this is what they're saying. Cornelius was an Edomite. And although, see, this is what makes it dangerous, because there's more truth in this lie, which makes it more dangerous. This is like a very well created and crafted lie for the circumcision. Because if it had less truth in it, like the version of the lie that's presented by pagan Christians, nobody's going for that. But they include more of the truth because they are bringing this lie out in the truth. This is yeast within. This is a cancer within, and that's what makes it dangerous. Okay, and that's why you better make sure you're able to discern between him who serveth the Most High and him who serveth him not. So let me get to it, because I got to wrap up. Supposedly, what they're saying, Cornelius was an Edomite, and although Edomites as a nation are wicked and evil, that doesn't mean they all are, and Cornelius is one of the ones that's not. Wrong. Okay, because number one, Cornelius was an Israelite, looking like them brothers here you see on the screen. Number two, all Edomites are wicked. Point blank, period. Yahushua said what? Can a corrupt tree bear good fruit? Can a good tree bear corrupt fruit? Can a corrupt tree bear good fruit? A corrupt tree cannot bear good fruit. If you know anything about the scriptures, then you will understand that in the scriptures, men and nations are likened unto, you guessed it, trees. So now let's bring that into men. If there is a man who is the progenitor and the forefather of a nation, and he is likened unto a tree, okay, and his descendants are the fruit of that tree, can a corrupt tree bear good fruit? Now these brothers, none of these brothers, they trying to make Cornelius an Edomite, and they trying to make him a righteous Edomite, right? But none of these brothers would try to say that Esau was righteous, okay? I hope I'm not giving them too much credit. I don't think I'm giving them too much credit. I don't think any of these brothers would say that. So we all would agree that Esau is, make sure you ask this question first, because if you ask this, you try to bring this out second, they'll flop and twitch and humming. So ask this question first. You got to trap them, right? Because if they see that they're being trapped, they're going to try to run for the side door, right? So you gotta be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. So hey, look, we all agree that Esau was wicked, right? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated, right? Good. So Esau is wicked, right? Yes, right. He's wicked. Good. So he would be a corrupt tree. Yahushua said a corrupt tree cannot bear good fruit. The fruit of that corrupt tree is all his descendants. There's no exceptions. Okay? No exceptions. And then so all the descendants that come from that corrupt tree, Esau, are all corrupt fruit. There's no exceptions. I mean, according to Yahushua, I'm going to scratch my head. I'm going to think about this for a second, but should I listen to Yahushua or should I listen to these guys here? I don't know, man. I'm going to sleep on it, but I'm going to pray on it. But only thing is, I don't need to because the decision's already made, right? You already know, Yahushua, right? So that's one way you know that's false. Another way you know that's false. But you do have to understand the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. I'm just going to give you the basic framework of the understanding of that principle. Lazarus represents the nation of Israel. That's why he's named. Typically, in Yahushua's parables, the characters are not named. Lazarus is an example. He's an exception. He's named. Why is Lazarus named? Because he represents Israel. It's to drive home the point that he represents Israel. If you have the understanding. If you don't have the understanding, then it goes over your head. Like I said, you got to have some understanding here. But I'm giving it to you, okay? So don't worry about it, right? Lazarus represents the nation of Israel. That's why he's given that name. And the name Lazarus literally means the one whom the Most High helps. Who does the Most High help? He is our help, our fortress, our strong tower. Izar Yah, our help. Izar, help, Yah, me. Okay, my help. Izar Yah, my help. Izar Naya, help me. Izar Yah, my help. Okay? He's called Lazarus because he represents the nation of Israel, because we are the ones that the Most High helps. And then you have the rich man. The rich man represents Esau. And when you fast forward to Esau's getting his judgment, which represents the judgment, the flames represent the tribulation he's going to be catching in the kingdom, the hell he's going to be catching in the kingdom, pursuant to Ezekiel 12. Let me make sure I'm remembering that right. Is it 12 or 14? That's why I got to go refresh my memory. But this is what the flames represent. The flames is not talking about no literal place where you burn forever and ever. That place doesn't exist. Okay? And I saw under the sun. What's under the sun? The surface of the earth. Good. The place of judgment. Okay? Hell is here on this earth. That's why people will say, oh, man, I'm catching nothing but hell, man. Hell, that's all I've been getting all day. Hell. Okay, I go home, I'm catching hell. Go to work, I'm catching hell. I go out to get to relax and have some fun at the sports bar, whatever. Catching hell. Whatever. Okay? And then when things are going well, man, I'm in heaven, man. This is living right here. Exactly. Okay? Hell is a condition played out here on this earth. And that's metaphorically. And it's also literally the grave, the earth, the ground. Okay? No, that's why I needed to refresh my memory. It's 25, I think. Let me see here. Usually I got it right, but I'm fuzzy on it tonight. Yep, 25. Okay? And this is an example of the hell that those flames that's in that metaphor, that parable. This is an example. Those flames represent this. Thus saith Adawan Yahweh, because that Edom have dealt against, does it say anything in here about except for the good ones? Okay? Thus saith Adawan, you know it doesn't. Because now if there was an exception, wouldn't it be important to point that out? Thus saith Adawan Yahweh, because we don't want to get into the kingdom of heaven and be beating the shit out of the Edomites, and then the Most High be like, hey, son, still, not that one. And we be looking up all sheep and be like, God, no, man, Salakia Abba, when you said we was going to, you was going to pour your vengeance on the Edomites, we thought you meant all of them. We didn't know that was a few. No, that would be important to point out. It's not here because there is no exception. Because that Edom have dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance and have greatly offended, and revenged himself upon them. Therefore, thus saith Adawan Yahweh, this is what the flames represents. I will also stretch out my hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it. And I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. It gets worse, a whole hell of a lot worse. And this is those flames, and those flames are going to be hot. And I will lay my vengeance, and this is why the rich man, which is Esau, Edom, all of them, the Edomites, all of them, the whole nation, this is why he was complaining and begging for just a drop of water. And then he was begging to warn others to not come, okay? Because this is the flames here. This is what it represents. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom. The vengeance of our Father Yahweh is going to be on the Edomites, all of them, no exceptions. If there's an exception, it has to be here. By the hand of my people Israel. And he's going to do it using us, because he's going to put his vengeance in us for Esau, all of them. And they shall do in Edom, except for a few exceptions, the good ones, according to mine anger, because the Heavenly Father is so furious and wroth against the Edomites that our anger, which from a human perspective is considerable, but from the Most High's perspective, our anger is wholly inadequate. So he's just gonna like act like our anger isn't even there, and he's just going to fill us with his anger and his vengeance and his wrath, and then he's going to turn us loose on the Edomites, so that when we do what we're going to do to the Edomites in the kingdom of heaven, it's going to be pleasing to him. It's going to satisfy him. Otherwise, it wouldn't. He'd be like, no, there ain't enough. There ain't enough for the Edomites, right? So he's going to make sure that what happens to them is enough. This is the flames. According to mine anger and according to my fury, not ours, his. And they shall know my vengeance, not ours. Ours isn't enough. Little itty bitty vengeance, saith Adonai Yahweh. See, this is the flames. See, and so when those flames was on him, and he wanted to get some water, he was like, can you send somebody over here to give me a little drop of water? In other words, can I get a little relief from this torment I'm going to be getting in the kingdom of heaven? And what was he told? He was told that there is a great gulf fixed betwixt us. There's we're in the same place and we can talk and all that, right? But there's a great gulf fixed. In other words, this is spiritual. There's nothing that's going to be done to lighten your judgment. And there's nothing that can be done for us to cross over and help you, or for you to cross over and be with us. There is none of that. There's a great gulf fixed betwixt us, and where none that's on this side can go over there, and none on your side can come over here. So how are there any exceptions where there's going to be some Edomites over with us in any capacity? There's a great gulf fixed where none can pass. Again, am I going to listen to Yahweh Shai, or am I going to listen to these dudes right here? Okay, a second way you know that's wrong. A third way you know that's wrong. And we're actually going to pull it up this time, and this is going to be it. Let me see. Did I get everything? I got that, and I got what he said about, let me see, what was the other thing I was going to say? Make sure I got at least two of them. The other thing was, yes, I pointed out how it's a bugged out doctrine because it doesn't make any sense, because the very thing that they did to fuck up their opportunity for salvation, they were already doing it when they got the opportunity for salvation. This is laughable, man. Okay? Nobody wants to be laughed at, man. You come to me with this doctrine, I'm gonna laugh in your face. I'm gonna laugh in your face, man. I'm going to try not to, but I'm not going to be able to help myself because it's laughable. I'm going to try not to laugh, but you know, if somebody's trying not to laugh, it's like, I'm going to be trying not to laugh in your face, man. But Salakia, I can't help it. Okay? It's laughable. All right? So let's get the last way you know that he's wrong about there being some good Edomites. Let's go to Hebrews 12. So I'm proving to you that he's wrong about that 3 times over. Once, twice, 3 times, baby. So I do like to have a little fun, man. And this is the only fun we have, man. Really. We got a little fun, but not really, man. Our prophet's fun is teaching the scriptures, man. And sometimes mocking those who have false doctrines, okay? And the heathen, especially the heathen, okay? I try not to mock brothers too much, but, hey, sometimes it happens. Okay, Hebrews 12, 16 and 17, man. A third way you know that it's wrong. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau. But he can repent though, right? Who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. That is dumb. That is stupid. That is base. Nobody would do that. Esau did. Oh, damn. I guess somebody would. For do you know how that afterward, make sure you know this, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected. But he repent though, right? For he found no place of repentance. But that only had to do with back then. They ain't talking about now. Well, why is the Apostle Paul bringing it up then? Oh, Apostle Paul. Tap, tap, tap. Hey, Apostle Paul. You know they ain't got nothing to do with now, right? So why are you bringing that up, man? Why don't you stick to the here and now? Just strike that out the epistle, man. That has nothing to do with, no, it has everything to do with now. Okay? Come on, man. He going to bring this up and it don't have anything to do with the right here and the right now? He's going to bring this up on his own accord? Yahushua didn't teach him this? Okay? He learned directly from Yahushua. Okay? Apostle Peter said that in his epistles, it's wisdom. And some things hard to be understood. Okay? Even the Apostle Peter struggled on, like, man, I get it, but I gotta chew on it for a while. Okay? Okay? No place of repentance except for the good ones. Again, man, you add to the scriptures. You're backfitting your scriptures onto your false doctrine, though he sought it carefully with tears. In other words, it don't matter how bad he wanted. It don't matter how hard he looked for it. It don't matter how bad he tried, how sincere he is. He ain't sincere. But let's set that to the side. He ain't sincere. But let's set that to the side. Let's pretend for a moment he is sincere. Don't matter. No place of repentance. And that's all of them. None of them are going to find any place of repentance, even if they seek it carefully with tears. And Esau did. And he was rejected. So no. With this guy that called in and the guy on the right, also in HOI, I don't know much about the dude on the left, the brother on the left, but it was deceit and guile, good words, meaning plausible words, and fair speeches, meaning very cleverly crafted to entice you and draw you in, lies, corruption, deceit, vomit, pursuant to Isaiah 28. All tables are full of vomit meaning the false doctrines. And this is a table. This is the table of, it's all blurry and stuff. Let me play it so I can see.
It's all right.
Yeah, there you go. This is the table of Inside the Nation Radio. This is a table, right? And on this table, you got some dishes. It's a potluck. You got some dishes from Genesis. You got some dishes from HOI, and the host. He's got his own version of the truth too, and I'm pretty sure that it's not correct. He's got leaven in it, so it's all vomit. That's what it's talking about in Isaiah 28. Don't eat vomit, man. I mean, I had to tell you twice. Okay, don't eat vomit. It's like, they got that meme, don't eat yellow snow. Don't eat vomit, man. You better find the good food. You better find the bread of life. You better find the hidden manna. Okay? Which is the bread of life, which is this gospel of the kingdom, which is Yahushua HaMashiach. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Before I do, want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Hakah, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Much peace and respect to the brothers teaching, pushing this truth out the four corners of the earth. I don't want to write this was edifying and encouraging to you, Achim, and the Achwaf that may be listening and or watching. Ayashmi Akwana, Azegim Lashema Shemai. Let him who has ears to hear. Kwam Yasharala, Baba Kusha, Abai Baba Etha, we'll call Adawam. Shalom Lahabachayim, Shalom.